This film portrays the story of a clever American Oxford graduate who, using his street knowledge and ambition, builds a marijuana empire using the real estate property of the British aristocracy. When he decides to sell his lucrative business to an American billionaire, things take an interesting turn. Mickey Pearson is a powerful and prestigious cannabis kingpin. Pearson's objective was to rise from poverty and gain fortune in order to become a powerful man. Pearson aims to sell his marijuana enterprise to the highest bidder so he may retire in peace with his wife Rosalind, after years of developing a wealthy marijuana empire and becoming one of the most prominent people in the criminal world. After hearing about the scheme, an American billionaire named Matthew Berger expresses interest in purchasing Pearson's marijuana operation for £400 million. Pearson brings him to one of the laboratories where they grow marijuana underground, to demonstrate how successful his weed operation is. Matthew is blown away with Pearson's cannabis lab. It was cultivated and managed so effectively that it generated high-quality marijuana with sky-high market prices. Matthew inquires as to why Pearson desires to sell the highly lucrative operation. Pearson explains how the industry is headed toward legalization and the empire is going to need a face that has a normal history and background, and Pearson with his history of crime was not a suitable candidate, so he'd rather sell and retire in peace. At a gathering, Pearson is introduced to the editor of the daily print tabloid, Big Dave. Pearson refuses to shake Big Dave's hand, embarrassing him in front of an elite audience of people because he had previously published a piece about him and one of his lords, who shortly after lost his lordship, wife left him and kids disowned him. After being humiliated by Pearson, Dave employs a private investigator, Fletcher, to investigate Pearson's ties with Lord Charles Pressfield and to spy on Pearson and his henchmen. Fletcher agreed to this, but demanded a hefty fee for his services. Later, Dry Eye is verifying container paperwork with his crew at another location. Dry Eye is the right-hand man of one of the most reputable crime lord bosses in the Chinese criminal world named Lord George, and is in charge of smuggling containers for him. Dry Eye not only smuggles illegal goods, but he also operates a human trafficking operation. Pearson's intention to sell his marijuana firm was subsequently revealed to Dry Eye by one of his guys. Dry Eye seemed intrigued and wants to purchase it after hearing this, despite Pearson's desire to increase the selling price. Pearson's attractive wife, Rosalind, runs a high-end car repair company and is well known among the rich and famous. Rosalind frequently buys parts and contraband for the repair shop from Dry Eye. During a routine transaction, Dry Eye requests a sit-down with Pearson but Rosalind refuses to arrange it. Dry Eye leaves but refuses to accept money on the current order and wants to leave it as a gesture of goodwill. Shortly after, Rosalind arranges the meeting and Dry Eye has his sit-down with Pearson. Dry Eye makes a hefty offer to buy out Pearson, but is told that the business is not for sale and Pearson wants him to leave. Raymond, Pearson's right-hand man, notices that Pearson is losing his patience with Dry Eye, steps in and urges him to leave immediately since Pearson had denied his offer more than once. Pearson starts imagining himself killing Dry Eye, but he's too close to retiring to ruin everything because of a few street thugs. So he decides to keep it cool and tells Dry Eye that he'll think about it. That night, a gang of thugs storm one of Pearson's marijuana facilities, overpowering his men and wiping the place clean while filming the whole thing and uploading it to YouTube. One of the guards quickly reports the news to Pearson, telling him that the thugs were professionally trained fighters, indicating that they were not your average street punks and that they were carrying out orders. Shortly after, we learn that the thugs are boxers from a local gym that's run by a guy known as the Coach, who quickly becomes very alarmed when he finds out that the person who they robbed was Mickey Pearson. He tells them to delete the YouTube video right away. Pearson begins shutting down and moving the cannabis plants from the farm as a precaution after the raid on his lab, while Raymond's #1 priority is finding out how the thugs knew about the location of the marijuana facility. Pearson meets with Lord Henry and lets him know that he'll be shutting down the operation at his house since their cover is blown. They need to move to a different location. Lord Henry is disappointed he won't be receiving his £1,000,000 this year, but Pearson promises to make it up. He then goes to see Lord Pressfield about moving the operation to his house. Pressfield agrees but asks for a favor, locating Laura, his daughter, who is a heroin addict and has been missing for a while now. Pearson then directs Raymond to locate Laura. Shortly after, Raymond discovers Laura hidden in an apartment with a group of other addicts. However, one of Raymond's guys accidentally throws Aslan, a young Russian man, from the balcony to his death when they try to stop Laura from leaving. This was captured on video by a group of young guys loitering outside the apartment building. Worried about leaving evidence behind, Raymond and his crew chase them in order to confiscate their phones. Raymond first offers to purchase his phone for a hefty sum. However, when they try to gang up on him, Raymond fires his assault rifle into the air, which scares the crap out of them, and he quickly surrenders his phone. After delivering Laura to her parents, Raymond informs Pearson about the kid who fell out the balcony, who turns out to be the son of a powerful Russian oligarch and ex-KGB agent. Laura is safely returned to her parents, but shortly after, dies of a drug overdose. Coach decides to go see Raymond and confesses that it was his boys who committed the robbery. He assures him that they did not know who it belonged to and offers to make things right as long as the boys are not touched. Raymond tells him to find out how the boys found out about the location of the marijuana facility before any deals are made. The coach agrees and quickly returns with Puck, one of Dry Eye's goons, in the trunk of his car. Raymond is amazed. They begin to take him out of the trunk for interrogation. When he takes off running, he jumps the wall and falls directly on top of the train tracks with a train running over him before they find anything out. Raymond informs Pearson about the events, and they come to the conclusion that Lord George is the person behind this, in an attempt to drop the value of his marijuana business. Pearson pays Lord George a visit and threatens to finish him off if he ever makes an attempt at Pearson or his business, and as payback, Pearson orders his men to burn down Lord George's heroin laboratory. Later, Lord George meets with Dry Eye to discuss why he went over his head by moving on Pearson without orders from him, but when Dry Eye starts insulting him, Lord George gives his right-hand man the nod to kill Dry Eye, but he fires on Lord George instead, killing him, with Dry Eye moving up to take his spot in a bold move. With Lord George out of the way, Dry Eye continues his pursuit of taking over Pearson's marijuana empire. Later, as Pearson sits in a restaurant talking to his wife, he overhears someone telling her to hang up the phone. As he asks her who's there and what's going on, a shot is fired. Raymond kills the man that was about to kill Pearson. They quickly head to Rosalind's shop. Over at the shop, Dry Eye is there with two of his men. He orders Rosalind to go with them. Rosalind fires on them, killing Dry Eye's men, but runs out of bullets and is grabbed by Dry Eye, who tries to rape her, but before he's able to, Pearson bursts in through the door, shooting and killing him. Fletcher meets Raymond and explains how he knows so much. He was recruited by Big Dave to follow Pearson and his guys in order to collect material for Big Dave's next tabloid attack piece, and it was payback for refusing to shake his hand at the event when Pearson embarrassed him in front of everyone. Fletcher offers to get rid of everything he has gathered for £20 million, or else it will be given to Big Dave. Fletcher also tells him that Dry Eye and Berger are working together to cause havoc and bring the price of Pearson's marijuana business down. After hearing everything, Raymond contacts the coach and asks for a final favor to settle the coach's debt for the robbery his boys pulled. The boys kidnap Big Dave and drug him. While wasted under the influence of drugs, they film him sexually assaulting a pig and send him the video, threatening to make it go viral if Big Dave ever targets them again. Later, Pearson meets Berger at his frozen seafood factory, which is really a front and used to distribute Pearson's marijuana across Europe. Berger demands that Pearson drop his price to £130 million because of all the problems he's been having. But Pearson shows him Dry Eye's frozen dead body and tells Berger that he's aware of everything, that it was him that organized and orchestrated everything. When Berger attempts to deny knowing who Dry Eye is, Pearson shows him the video of their meeting, where they were recorded plotting everything. Berger is forced to fess up and tells Pearson that it's nothing personal, just business. Pearson replies that he's not emotional about the money and adds up the damages caused by Berger and comes up with £270 million. But for putting his hands on his wife, he admits he is very emotional, and tells him that the price for that is a pound of flesh, to be cut off anywhere from Berger's body, and he lets him choose which part. He tells Berger that he will be locked in the freezer until the £400 million is transferred to Pearson, and he has about an hour before freezing to death. Later, as Fletcher returns to collect his £20 million, Raymond informs him that he placed a tracking device on him and he's been following him for a while now, that they have found every single location where he was hiding backups of his gathered information in case something happened to him. Fletcher, fearing for his life, offers more information as a trade for his life. Apparently, Fletcher sold information to Aslan's father, the kid that fell from the balcony. Aslan's father, the ex-KGB agent, knows that Pearson's responsible for his son's death and had sent someone to kill Pearson at the restaurant, but Raymond killed him. Now there's two more hitmen on their way and should be arriving shortly. The coach, on his way to Raymond's house, sees the hitmen and manages to kill them both. During the commotion, Fletcher is able to escape. At the frozen seafood factory, two other Russian hitmen kidnap Pearson, but before they are able to get far, they are ambushed by the coach's boys who spray the car with bullets, killing the Russians as Pearson gets away. Some time later, Fletcher goes to Miramax Films to try to sell them all of his information as a script for a movie. On his way out, he gets snatched up by Raymond, who was pretending to be a taxi driver. Rosalind delivers the news of Fletcher to Pearson. The film ends with Pearson's thoughts. If you wish to be the king of the jungle, it's not enough to act like a king, you must be the king. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more videos.